Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Senators. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today regarding the regulation of cannabis products. As you heard, my name is Melodie Tilson. I'm the Director of Policy with the Non-Smokers' Rights Association, and with me is our Senior Policy Analyst, Pippa Beck. Together, we have more than 40 years of experience in tobacco control. Our organization, the Non-Smokers' Rights Association, has been at the forefront of tobacco reforms in Canada since 1974, leading campaigns for the Federal Tobacco Products Control Act and its successor, the Tobacco Act, for plain packaging as far back as 1994, and for world precedent-setting graphic health warnings on packages, to name just a few. It is this wealth of experience in the effective regulation of an addictive and harmful product, one that is primarily smoked, that we bring to bear on your consideration of issues related to the appropriate regulation of cannabis. We are pleased that the government has stated from the outset the importance of taking a public health approach to the regulation of cannabis. However, we cannot emphasize enough that where there is a profit to be made in the selling of an addictive drug, public health is at risk. The tobacco industry has shown us what it is willing to do in the pursuit of profit. Cannabis legalization needs sufficient protection from commercial interests, or Canada could face Big Tobacco 2.0, Big Cannabis. Indeed, we've all witnessed the meteoric rise in cannabis stocks over the past year or so. Bloomberg data shows that there are 84 cannabis-related companies trading on Canadian stock exchanges that are collectively worth $37 billion. While we acknowledge that there is medical cannabis to be supplied domestically and exported, much of the hype has to do with recreational cannabis use. The goal of these companies will be to continue to grow the Canadian recreational cannabis market. We believe that the measures currently proposed for the regulation of cannabis are insufficient to adequately protect public health in the face of a new industry poised to make billions. I'll now turn over the mic to Pippa Beck, who will focus on two issues: the need for tighter restrictions on promotion and the need for adequate public education.
Thank you, Melodie. A public health approach to cannabis regulation should focus on denormalizing smoking and providing adequate public education via mass and social media, and importantly through health warnings on the package, about the risks of use, about the risks of breathing secondhand cannabis smoke, and about relative risks. There is little public understanding of the fact that smoke is smoke, and the fact that the harm comes from inhaling it, whether it's tobacco or cannabis, or of the fact that vaping poses much less risk than smoking. We've spent decades legislating and educating so that tobacco smoking is no longer a social norm. However, smoking cannabis is currently the most prevalent form of consumption recreationally. 94%, according to the 2017 Canadian Cannabis Survey. We know from tobacco research that package warnings can be a highly targeted, effective, and cost-effective form of public education. However, the current proposal for 6 warnings includes no warning regarding the relative risks of smoked versus other forms of consumption, no warning of the dangers of exposure to secondhand cannabis smoke, and no warning of the risks of combining tobacco and cannabis. We urge senators to recommend that warnings on these issues be included in the list of mandatory health warnings on cannabis products. Turning to promotion, the Task Force on Cannabis Legalization and Regulation rightly concluded that marketing, advertising, and promotion of marijuana would only serve to normalize it in society and increase and encourage its consumption. We believe Bill C-45 should be amended to prohibit promotions directed at retailers and distributors. This is Division 2, Subdivision A, Section 16, C and D. Our experience with tobacco indicates that when opportunities for promotion are restricted, manufacturers turn to retailers to promote on their behalf using contracts, incentive programs, reward programs, etc., to achieve category growth. As was described by British American Tobacco in 2010, the closer we are to the retailer, the closer we are to the consumer. This amendment will be important in provinces where private companies can apply for a retail license to sell, including Alberta, BC, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. The system is open to abuse. It's much better to have a federal law banning this kind of promotion as opposed to a patchwork of provincial laws. We also recommend that Section 17(6) of the bill be amended to prohibit the use of cannabis brand elements on items that are not cannabis or cannabis accessories, regardless of whether they would be considered appealing to young people or associated with an attractive lifestyle. Brand stretching is a marketing strategy that is effective in increased brand awareness to help increase consumption. Furthermore, our experience with tobacco control has demonstrated that companies often count on lax enforcement of provisions, particularly those that require interpretation. Permitting cannabis brand elements on T-shirts and ball caps, mugs, you name it, it's not in keeping with a public health approach. Another important promotional vehicle is the packaging, and we agree with the stipulation that the brand name cannot be in a font that is larger than that used for the health warning. However, we're concerned that there are no restrictions on brand names themselves, and we know from Australian experience with tobacco plain packaging that when the package design elements are curtailed, tobacco companies get very creative in the names they use for brands and brand variants, using them to connote aspirational lifestyles. We're concerned that without restrictions here in Canada, the same thing could happen regarding cannabis brands. We did a quick internet search and found evocative names such as Suicide Girls, Pura Vida Health, and Everyone Does It. Everyone Does It cannabis brand. Furthermore, with no limit on the number of words in a brand name, the name could serve to distract the eye from the health warning. Likewise, we're concerned there are no restrictions on additional permitted brand elements other than font size if it's a slogan or absolute size if it's a logo. The slogan could thus be long enough to take up the remaining white space on the packaging, not only detracting from the health warning, but also conveying significant promotional messaging. It's also vital that the regulations prohibit the use of technologies that can be used to violate the spirit of the law, for example, by linking to promotional material such as websites, images, or videos when scanned with a smartphone. To conclude, we believe that stronger public education, including mass and social media, and a wider range of package warnings, as well as further restrictions on promotion, will go a long way to further safeguard the interests of public health. It's much easier to loosen things down the road than to try to rein in a burgeoning market and a powerful industry. Thank you. We look forward to your questions.
Okay, thank you very much.